Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Disney's absolute bloodbath. Their stock is down $27 billion in the last 30 days. Their company started out, and this is absolutely incredible, 30 days ago with a value of $187 billion. That's a lot. 30 days later, $160 billion. $27 billion down. They brought in Bob Iger. They got rid of Bob Chapek. Bob Iger was supposed to save the company, turn the company around. He's announced all sorts of things he's doing to try to turn the company around, but the stock is getting absolutely destroyed. It's as if the people who invest in Disney have zero faith in Bob Iger being able to turn Disney into a profitable, decent business. They may be right. Currently, though, they're not struggling financially. They're paying all of their bills. Their stock is doing badly. Some people are still recommending, hey, why don't you check out and buy the stock? But a number of analysts are also saying, hey, this looks really bad and we think it's justified. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Trying to get the channel to 15,000 subscribers, so if you could subscribe, I really appreciate it. So Disney is at a $160 billion valuation. They've lost 13.94, about 14% of the value of the company in the last 30 days. How bad is that compared to Anheuser-Busch's Bud Light company? Well, they've lost 17%, and 17 is worse than 14. But still, we all know Bud Light is like this historic disaster for this beer company. It's something that we haven't seen in a boycott ever before. So we kind of understand a little bit better why Bud Light is getting so hurt and why their stock is in such terrible shape. But Disney doesn't really have that excuse. Disney is rated by a company called Moody's. What do? They watch their credit. And not just Disney's, but other public companies as well. They rate it. They look at it and they say, well, are these guys going to be able to pay their bills? Let's get serious. And the answer is yes, Disney can pay all of its debt. It has no pending issues where they don't look like they're a reasonable credit risk. In fact, Moody's has said they have an A2 rating. It's an upper medium grade, and it's subject to low credit risk, which means this is like lending money to someone that you know is able to pay it back. That is what Moody's is saying about Disney. Moody's is very well aware that Hulu is going to be coming to a head over the next year, and there are negotiations going on with Comcast. They read the Wall Street Journal. They have their insider contacts as well. Their analysts are very well aware, yes, Disney is probably going to be giving several $1 billion to Comcast. Yes, they will probably raise debt to do that, and that could affect their credit rating if they decide to do it that way. However, this is not something Disney is going to have a problem doing. And I don't like it when I hear people say, oh, Disney doesn't have the cash. They're not going to have the cash to do it. I like to beat up Disney. They deserve it. They deserve to be brutalized for what they've done to the incredible culture that Disney used to be. But I like to keep it straight. And the straight truth is $10 billion, $15 billion, $25 billion practically overnight if they feel like it. Through debt, through a special stock offering, through convertible debt, where they would issue debt. They would get cash from investors for that debt, and then the investors would sell that stock back into the stock marketplace as if it was new stock. That would dilute the value of the company. But just like inflation, stockholders would have to pay for it. They kind of can't do anything about it. And it's also not an unreasonable thing to do because Hulu has value. A third of it is probably worth $15 billion. So if they borrow $15 billion to acquire something worth $15 billion, what's the problem? It's not a loss. It's not a debt. It's acquiring an asset. Disney's also still going to spend billions of dollars in Florida despite fighting with Ron DeSantis over what they call the Don't Say Gay bill. Why would they spend $17 billion in Florida? How are they going to do that? This is the one business they seem to know how to actually run at a profit. If they spend $17 billion on real estate, it's only because they couldn't spend $18 billion or $30 billion on real estate projects. This is the maximum amount that they could possibly spend and get the advantages that they want to get. The advantages are, like in real estate development, if you have a good opportunity, a good piece of land in a good area, and you know it's going to be successful, and people that evaluate it know it's going to be successful, every dollar you spend financing it, you're going to get back 2 or 3 times. That is what they're doing in Florida. This is not going to be affected by any of the lawsuit stuff or any fighting between Ron DeSantis and Bob Iger. However, they can't just depend only on their theme park and their travel businesses. Their stock started falling because the streaming losses are freaking out investors. They're bad. And investors that are sophisticated also know that they're probably still playing with the numbers and the losses are actually worse than they're really reporting. Doesn't mean they're doing anything illegal. Bob Iger's not doing anything illegal. No one's going to jail. But there's a lot of freedom to play around with the accounting numbers. And then at the end of the day, it's a bad situation what's going on with streaming. Paramount Plus is losing billions every year with their streaming business. Comcast is losing $3 billion a year with their streaming business. I think maybe something creative could happen with Hulu. And I wouldn't be surprised if Iger isn't working on that with some really smart people, because many of these studios are losing billions every year. They can't get enough momentum going. If they combine things under Hulu, that could actually create a lot of value. Even if they didn't make a profit, but they stopped losing money, they'd be ahead of the game. But in the meantime, investors are looking at the streaming business saying, look, you've lost over $11 billion with Disney Plus. When is this going to end? The answer is nobody knows when it's really going to end. He's claiming it's going to break even or make a profit at the end of next year. It's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this was to create a money-making machine so that you could take your content, put it on your streaming service, distribute it at prices that you wanted to, and be able to produce more content and build your audience. And that's not working out. No one is getting the Netflix type of thing. No one is working as well as Netflix is working. Warner Bros. Discovery has been able to make their streaming services break even at this point. That is phenomenal. That's incredible because no one else has pulled that off yet. I have a lot of faith in that company and their management. But at Disney, it's all craziness and they're losing tons of money. Investors are looking at it and saying, they're a shaky stock. They're not a stock worth owning. And I think even aside from the woke stuff, which is a great reason not to buy a stock, because if you're making intellectual properties, you make them woke, the best that's going to happen, at best, a break-even proposition. So they spent $250 million to make it, probably another $200 million to market it. Even if they only spent $100 million to market it, they're not going to get their money back, or it'll break even and make no money. So then there's no sequel. There's no ability to build on that world and to have additional things come from it. No, they can't, because they had to make it woke. They couldn't help themselves. Everything they do is woke stuff. And all of these woke projects, I'm not aware of any of them that make a profit or that just do well. Star Wars had some success where they made some money on some of the films they did, probably that were woke-ish, but then they destroyed the franchise. It's like getting a credit card and using up all the credit. They used up all their credibility. And Disney, this is coming from Washington Examiner, really burned its reputation just to demand that first graders learn about sexual attraction. That's the quote, don't say gay bill. Why did they need to become so obsessed with doing this? This was just something that Bob Chapek handled particularly clumsily. He needed to be able to tell his employees to shut up and not bother him with this. He didn't know how to do that. There's a certain way of handling people to do that. I do think Iger could have handled it, but Bob Chapek definitely couldn't handle it. Either way, when there was too much resistance, they should have stopped it. And now they're still fighting over it. And it's a mess for Disney. And people are not comfortable with the Disney brand or any of the other brands that they represent. People always put in my comments, they're not comfortable with letting their children watch Disney content anymore. That's not good. And this is why people aren't comfortable, because you trust them. And then they turn around and do something like this. This is going back to July 2022. Disney swaps fairy godmother role at parks for gender-neutral apprentice. The move will allow cast members that don't identify as women to help style and dress up children. So put on makeup and clothes on your children as their favorite Disney characters. This is from July 2022. What does this turn into? Well, now it's May 2023, and Disney is blasted for allowing a mustached man in a dress with makeup to dress up people's children at their theme park. Now, is there anything wrong with this? Well, if parents aren't comfortable with it, then there is something wrong with it. Then you shouldn't do it. You're serving customers. You can't do this. You're in the service business. It's not appropriate. And that's what Disney's brand has turned into, complete non-appropriateness. You may have heard Florida has a law now that restricts children being involved in sexualized situations in public, whether it's drag queens or gay pride parades or whatever else people are doing with children, they need to be careful about how they're doing it, and they can't have children in an environment that feels like a sexualized environment by normal standards or by classic standards. Now, from Deadline today, new Florida law sparked concern among organizers of gay days at events at Walt Disney World and other sites. This shouldn't even be a possibility that this would affect someone identifies as this or they identify as that. It should make no difference. The difference is, what are you doing that there are going to be issues at Walt Disney World for gay days with a state law to protect children? Something isn't right there, and Disney should be setting this right. It shouldn't be that there are these problems with Disney when it comes to having limitations on how you're allowed to legally interact with children. This is why they've lost $27 billion of stock value in the last 30 days, and why it will probably start to get worse. But don't be fooled. Disney's not going out of business tomorrow. Bob Iger is not going to jail. There will be a change in management when he ultimately leaves the company in a year or 2 years. Hopefully they start to wake up. Hopefully there is a Bud Light style boycott, a Target style boycott. So customers tell Disney, hey, look, we don't want to be involved in your agenda. Stop it with the agenda. Just serve your customers. Give them whatever they want as long as it's legal. And some of what Disney wants to do apparently isn't legal in Florida anymore. Just take care of the customers and go back to traditional values and incorporate some characters here and there to serve your diverse interests. It's fine, but they need to cut it out. They need to get back to basics. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Always love to see your comments. Really appreciate your ideas. Did you know that Disney had lost $27 billion over the last 30 days and that it's almost as bad as the Bud Light situation? Let me know in the comments below. Really appreciate you. Please also be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.